Watching Beyond Markets, welcome. I'm Kenneth Igbomor. On today's show, we'll discuss opportunities in West Africa's hospitality sector. You can join the conversation with the hashtag Beyond Markets and follow my handle at Kenneth Igbomor. The CEO of Azalai Hotels, Mossadeck Bally, says the return on investment in Africa's hospitality sector have tripled as countries on the continent make regulatory and policy reforms in the sector. I caught up with him in Abidjan to discuss the opportunities in West Africa's hospitality sector. Take a look.
It depends on the country, of course, we're talking about. A country like Ivory Coast has seen a tremendous growth in the economy, and definitely that has positively affected the hospitality industry with many new hotels coming, for example, our own hotel, and many projects coming also from international brands, regional brands, and even independent hoteliers. So it's a sector which definitely does benefit from any kind of economic growth, because as you know, Africa in general and West Africa in particular is attracting many foreign direct investment, and people who come to look at economic opportunities do need to stay in hotels. When we started 25 years ago, Azalai Hotels Group in Mali, by buying a state-owned hotel, Grand Hotel de Bamako, we didn't have that much of an interest on the hospitality industry. Many investors really didn't look at that industry as an industry to invest on. But today we can say that on the whole continent, we see a lot of appetite coming from international brands, from regional hotel chains, indigenous hotel chains like Azalai Hotels, and from independent investors also.
Beyond the economic growth, what else do you think is that, what is attracting these foreign investors into this sector?
Well, they see the potential. As I said, you have the foreign direct investors coming, but what we have seen also in the past 10 to 15 years is the tremendous growth in intra-Africa travel. For example, at Azalai, 60% to 70% of our clientele comes from West Africa, meaning the UEMOA zone or the ECOWAS zone. So our clientele is mainly from Africa, and we can see that trend of Africans traveling in Africa. So I think that also is strengthening the appetite for the hospitality industry. What I can also say that it's the business segment which is really thriving, and the leisure segment is not yet thriving, at least in West Africa. We see more of the business segment growing and the leisure segment is not growing.
So when you see how governments, are positioning the sector, the hospitality sector, just taking a peep from our neighbor in Rwanda, we're seeing how they're launching campaigns to promote their tourism industries and all that. Do you think the countries in West Africa, the governments in West Africa, are doing enough on this front?
No, they're not doing enough. I mean, I really appreciate and highly recommend what Rwanda is doing to promote Rwanda tourism. We see the government, at least in West Africa, whenever they talk about the key economic sectors which can generate employment and growth, you always find the hospitality industry, which is true, because when you build a hotel, you create a lot of jobs, and you earn foreign exchange, you train people, you train HR. So it's true that it's a very important economic sector, but it's, I would say, rhetoric, because they do not, for example, make it easy for investors to access land. Land is very expensive in most of the, at least the capital cities. You don't have training schools to train the HR, and that's one of our biggest challenges, is to get well-trained HR. And they don't make also the cost of capital reasonable. When you go to commercial banks or DFIs, the cost of borrowing for a hotel project is quite high. So Yes, hospitality industry is one of the main sectors in which we can invest, which really develop employment, but the governments are not really investing efforts and capital to make it easier for developers to come and develop hotels.
Interesting you mentioned your work with DFIs there. I'd like to know the kind of work you're doing with them, or plans in the works, or how you think they can also play in this whole value chain.
Well, we've been working with DFIs for the past 25 years. I mean, our first loan, we got it from IFC, a $1 million loan which we got from IFC in 1994 to refurbish the Grand Hotel de Bamako. And ever since, we've been working with IFC, Proparco, Banque West Africaine de Développement, all these DFIs. And they have played a key role in the development of the hotel industry in our countries, because as you know, a hotel project is time consuming, is very capital intensive, and most of the commercial banks like the EcoBank, Bank of Africa, the Moroccan banks, they really cannot lend resources, let's say on 10 to 12 years, or a hotel project need at least 10 years to be profitable. So the DFIs have really played a key role in attracting more investment in the hospitality industry. Without that, those DFIs, I don't think we would have seen that big growth in the hospitality industry, because the commercial bank would not have been able to lend this capital to the developers.
Interesting. So let's look at from your roots in Bamako. Now we are here in Abidjan. I would like you to talk about the footprint of your hotel chain and how that has been over the years.
Well, as I said, we started in Bamako when we bought a state-owned hotel, Grand Hotel de Bamako, which we refurbished, and today we have 10 properties in 6 West African countries, and we are developing. The next opening will be Dakar, and then we'll open Conakry and then Niger. And now also we are looking at projects in Anglophone West Africa. I will be traveling to Lagos next week to look at opportunities. So definitely I would say that Azalai Hotels Group is an indigenous African hotel chain. At the very beginning, when we bought Grand Hotel, I didn't want to be just an investor, to buy a hotel, to refurbish, and to sign a management contract with one of these big international chains. I really wanted to showcase African hospitality, African know-how, develop a hotel, manage with African HR. And today I must say that we have been quite successful in that vision, and we also have now other African hotel chains which are doing the same as we are doing, because we think that we will have more and more Africans traveling. We have the diaspora which comes back, but we also have a growing middle class in most of our countries. They do travel for business, they travel for leisure, they travel for family reason, and I think that we should capture that business, and African hotel chains are maybe more positioned than international hotel chains to capture part of this business. Of course, we also need these international brands, because an American who comes to Abidjan or to Bamako for the first time would like to go to a Sheraton, because he or she knows what is Sheraton, but exactly what to expect. But once he comes and maybe discover Azalai or another African band, then he will start to come back to our hotels.
So in making African hotel chains more competitive with the international brands, I'd like to know the work you're doing, especially with building the skill set in terms of capacity building.
Oh, that's for us, that's something which is very critical to train. As I said, unfortunately, most of our countries did not invest in training. For example, in the all ECOWAS zone, you don't really have a hospitality school. I mean, you have some schools, but they are not really hospitality schools. So what we did, we set up a school, a vocational training school in Bamako. This is our third year, and we're quite happy. So we take youngsters, grade 9th, they do a test, and then they go to school during 1 year. It is a vocational training school. Half of the time they stay at school, and half of the time they go in hotels, in restaurants. And after 1 year, we do have skilled HR for our hotels, but also for competition. For example, Sheraton just opened in Bamako, and most of the Sheraton staff was trained in our school. So for us, it's critical to invest in HR, in training, because hospitality is about service. Yeah, true. It's good and nice to have a nice hotel, a nice room, everything was perfect. But if you don't have the quality of the service, then people won't come. And I think what Azalai has done is to make sure that we have an indigenous African hotel chain, but managed with international standards. When you go to Azalai Hotel, you will find exactly the same quality of service you would find in an international brand.
So when you look at all the areas you're expanding to, how does, especially from the skill level, how does this differ, the conditions you meet across the areas where you operate?
Well, in countries like Ivory Coast and Senegal, you do have well-trained skills. I mean, they have a hospitality tradition. They still have a good public education system. And if you go to countries like in the Sahel region, like Mali, Burkina Faso, then you struggle assessing well-trained HR. A country like Nigeria, for example, where the potential is huge, what I have seen during my couple of travels in Lagos is there is a lot of to be done in training the HR. Ghana also has a very good potential. So it really varies on and now we're talking about West Africa, of course, but you have countries like Morocco, Tunisia, Kenya, South Africa. They have great HR because they have really invested in schools and training systems.
I've been speaking to Mossadeck Bally, the CEO of Azalai Hotels Group. As we continue our focus on the opportunities in West Africa's hospitality sector, still with me is Mossadeck Bally, the CEO of Azalai Hotels Group. I'd like to talk specifically about Nigeria, the opportunity you see in that market. How do you think that will, add to the Azalai footprint?
Well, as I said, Nigeria is typically what we see in most of at least the West African countries, where you have a huge potential, but where it's very difficult to enter. I mean, we've been going to Lagos for 3 or 4 years now. We have never been able to access a land. We have had a lot of talks, meetings. We even had a meeting with the governor of Lagos, who promised to help us get a land. The governments, be it local governments or state government, should make it easier for investors to come and invest. In countries where, for example, in Morocco, where they will have close to 20 million visitors, what they did is they will take land, they will develop the land, and they will sell it at a very reasonable price to hotel builders. This is what every country should do to attract investment. But when you go to Lagos, to have a land to build a hotel is just, very, very difficult. But the potential is great, and I'm sure very soon there will be an Azalai in Lagos.
Yeah, and I want you to speak to the potential you see. So if there's an Azalai in Lagos or a chain of Azalai in Lagos, how do you think that will impact the value of your brand, in terms of the market cap?
Well, Nigeria is the biggest African economy. Lagos is the biggest city on the continent. And to be in Nigeria will include the value of the group, and also one thing we should bear in mind, when we open a hotel in a country, we can source also customers from that country. For example, if there is an Azalai in Lagos or Abuja, people traveling from Lagos to Abidjan or from Abuja to Dakar, since they know Azalai, they will most probably also book a room in Azalai Abidjan or Azalai Dakar. So for us, we have to complete our network. Our vision was to be in all the 8 UEMOA countries. We did that except Togo, where we don't have yet an Azalai. And the next phase is to be in the 15 ECOWAS countries. And we even started now to develop projects in Central Africa because we are going to build a hotel in Douala. So definitely, you cannot call yourself an indigenous West African hotel chain without being in Nigeria.
Definitely, Nigeria is important. But I'd like you to speak to the work you're doing to reach other segments of the market. You know, I heard that there's some very interesting projects on low-cost hotel housing coming in from Burkina Faso in the works. Can you speak to that?
In the hospitality industry as a whole, the economy segment is developing very fast. You know, today you have travelers who are looking for convenience, who are very price sensitive, especially on the continent. So for the time being, we have hotels in the 4-star segment, which is Azalai hotels, and we have decided to develop an economy brand, which is called Dunia Hotels, Dunia meaning the world. And the first opening will be in Burkina Faso, in Lubila, which is a city 25 kilometers from Ouagadougou. By the end of the year, we'll open Dunia Hotel Lumbila, which is a 2-star hotel. And then after that, we will be rebranding also some of our hotels, which really are not 4-star hotel, like the one in Guinea-Bissau, will be rebranded as a Dunia Hotel. And the aim is to really even have a completely independent team inside our group to develop the Dunia Hotel, because it's a segment which is, I would say, growing and growing very fast. So we want to tap into that economy segment.
So beyond your strategy for low-cost housing, I'd like to look at another segment, which is technology. You know, I see how that has been an enabler for many other industries. You know, I'd like to know the work how that is, you know, affecting your sector.
Today technology is key in our sector. Well, Africa, of course, is lagging behind, but in more developed countries like on the American continent or European continent today, everything is done with technology. Booking, everything is done with technology. In Africa, we still have, I would say, 60 to 70% of booking which are direct booking. I mean, people sending emails or calling or even coming to the hotel to book. And that ratio will, of course, decrease because more and more people will go online and book a Azalai hotel room in Abidjan, Dakar, or tomorrow Lagos, I hope. So we have a department, the marketing department, the IT department, which are both working to put all this technology into our hotels. That means we want to develop distribution. We are not yet at a level where we access many clients from the distribution. We want to cater to the millennials who are very technology oriented. They want to use their smartphone to book a hotel room. We also tomorrow want to have technology into our room, maybe the AC or the room key tomorrow. Maybe you won't have a key, you will just use your smartphone to open your door. So this is, I would say, a big trend in the hospitality industry, technology, which is coming slowly but definitely coming on the continent. And we are getting ready, of course, to tap into all these technologies so that we can adapt to our clientele.
Okay, still on technology, I want to look at the other side of technology now, the area of innovation and disruption. We've seen, you know, brands like Airbnb come across in many countries, you know, giving the hoteliers a run for their money. How do you see that as a threat in this region?
Well, I would see it as an opportunity instead of a threat. Yeah, definitely Airbnb is here and it's here to stay. It's not yet very big on the continent compared to the other continents, but definitely we have to take this disruption into consideration in designing our hotels, in marketing our hotels, in selling our hotels. But I would say that there will always be hotels because people just don't get from Airbnb what they need. For example, a business traveler needs more than a bed, and he or she will come to a hotel. So, but yeah, we know that this disruption is here. It's here to stay. It will take some of our revenues. So we have to be very imaginative to counter that disruption. But I'm quite confident. I think that we are in a mature industry, and that industry can have some disruptions, but it will stay.
So development is the only sure thing we can vouch for in the industry. As we see new trends coming up, going to the future, which do you think will stand up and to stand up and shape the future of the hospitality industry in West Africa?
As I said, the economy, definitely the economy segment will shape it. Very convenient, no-frill hotels. I see a tendency. I'm myself a very big traveler, and really people are looking for convenience, for location, for security in some of our countries, unfortunately. Technology, as I said, is big. The first thing when you come today into a hotel room is to access your office. So internet is something which is today a key element of choosing a hotel. And in that area, we need more investment. We can see that in most of our countries, unfortunately, the internet is very slow, and that's really something we should work on with the government. So this is where I see the trends. Also millennials, young people traveling, that's why you see all this economy trend growing. Millennials are looking for location, convenience, technology. They're no more that's why we do not invest in 5-star hotels, or these fancy hotels, because the demand is, well, you have a small demand from governments, from public servants when they have conferences, but this is not where you have the biggest trend. The biggest trend is economy and the mid-range.
So as an indigenous player, I would like to know what you see as your unique value proposition for the market.
Well, as I said, we put Africa into our hotels. We make sure that when you come into a Azalai hotel, you feel really that you are in Africa, you are in Ivory Coast, you are in Mali, you are in Benin. At the early stage of the project development with the designer, the architects, we make sure that we find Africa. We make sure also that we find Africa in our restaurants with the food we serve to our client, and also the HR. I think it's important to come to a hotel and see African HR well-trained, international standards, deliver that quality of service. So I think that's why we have been successful, and even in cities where we have a very stiff and international competition, we have been successful. Today, Azalai Hotel Abidjan is the #1 hotel on the market, and we have the Radisson, the Novotel, the Sofitel. They are all here, but people do appreciate, and not only Africans, but also international travelers. They do appreciate being in a hotel which is run with international standard, but having the sense that you are not in Paris or Tokyo or London, but you are in Abidjan. This is something I think our customers really appreciate, and that's why we have been successful.
So finally, as we go end the third quarter of the year, I would like you to give your projection for how you think this industry will pan out this year.
I think the outlook is bright, really. Many projects, many countries are having economic growth. You do have some spots where you have problems, like in the Sahel region, you do have terrorist problems that are really affecting the business in these countries. But overall on the continent, and I just, I think, read a statistic from the World Tourism Organization, I mean, the outlook is very bright, very, very bright on the continent. So we are quite confident that we are in an industry which has many, many good years ahead.
That was Mossadeck Bally, the CEO of Azalai Hotels Group. And that's it on Beyond Markets for today. Thank you for joining us. Remember, you can watch all previous episodes of Beyond Markets on our website at cnbcafrica.com. Also, stay engaged with the hashtag Beyond Markets and follow me at Kenneth Igbomor. Do have a wonderful day.